back to Animal Liberation TV. So, yeah, I wanted to do a few little bits relating to Barry in the build up to his 20th anniversary day of action, which I'm hoping is going to be UK wide and international potentially. We'll see. Um, so, as part of that, I wanted to go through a few bits of Barry memorabilia that I've rediscovered. I've got piles of zines and newspaper articles and all sorts relating to animal liberation stuff. So um, I should really get more out and read them out in short little episodes and stuff to you. But one of the things I want to show you first of all, quite quickly, to start is Barry was sentenced to 18 years in 1997, was it? The end of 97 maybe. He got 18 years for a string of arson attacks on the Isle of Wight in 1994, including basically gutting the whole of the boot store there to the cost of about £10 million. He was also responsible for high street arson attacks in Cambridge and Oxford, York and Harrogate. But there were also arson attacks against boots on the high street stores in other places. And in fact, for years, there'd been a criminal damage campaign against boots as well as arson tactics. Many of their high street stores were smashed. In fact, I was given 3 years for conspiracy to commit criminal damage in a trial called the Manchester Conspiracy back in 1991. We were arrested and then sentenced in 93. And I was accused of breaking 27 windows in one night. And some of those were Boots windows, in fact. And in fact, I discovered some of the old court papers the other day. So what I'll do is maybe dig some of those out in part of my Badgers stories. But that includes criminal damage on Boots windows. So the whole ALF had a campaign for years against Boots because of their animal labs, which was spearheaded by an ALF raid on their labs in Thurgerton, I think it's called, something like that. And some beagles were taken, and it made the national press. And there were posters made of the Boots beagles with people in balaclavas, very similar to the old Interfauna ones. In fact, I might have a Boots ALF poster somewhere in my pile, so I should try and dig that out as well if I've got it. So that was spearheaded by that, and then there was a huge campaign to boycott Boots because of their labs. So local groups up and down the country for a few years were constantly picketing outside Boots stores up and down the country, leafleting. They had a real bad rep, and eventually, pretty much as a result of Barry kind of taking it to the next level in the way only Barry could do, really, they sold their labs. So I've got a sheet here with loads of stuff to do with Boots. Boots. Bomb hit, chemist steps up security. Shops, chaos, terror claim. Let's get to this one. Boots hit by more firebombers. Boots bosses order firebomb checks. Bomb fanatics launch a third strike at Boots. And where were these places? Helston, Cornwall. Another one is somewhere else in Cornwall. And this one was, where was this? Branches of Northampton. Branches of security has been stepped up everywhere in all the branches in the south. Firebombs were discovered in Cornwall branches. And then Hertford. Some firebombs were found in 3 of the store's branches. The ALF is thought to be responsible. So there was a lot of stuff going on at that time to do with the Boots thing. And of course, Barry is kind of one of the things we remember him for most is his High Street Boots campaign. And he didn't just attack Boots, he attacked like cancer research shops and places like that fund animal research. I need the lights on because I'm wearing stupid shades inside. Okay, there we go. So this is November the 6th, Tuesday, November the 6th, 2001. That's right. I remember it being a Monday when I heard he died, because he died on the 5th. So this is the next day. The Times, a huge feature about him. So it was big news. So I'm going to read this out. Obviously, I'll give my little max comments of experience and opinion. Hopefully, you find those of some sort of interesting or humorous addition or something. Fanatic who revelled in his own. Fanatic who revelled in his notoriety. Fanatic who revelled in his notoriety. I mean, Barry didn't revel in anything. He wasn't a reveling sort of person. You know, he was morose. Everyone says that about him. You know, he's morose and moody. So, first of all, he never revelled in anything. His notoriety. Um, well, not really. Barry didn't like people. He didn't like any attention. He didn't like to give anyone any of his attention. He didn't like any of theirs on him. You know, I think notoriety, you could replace that with fate and destiny. I think Barry had a very good idea and plan in his head of how much effect he could have while he was alive, and then through use of his own life, of what he could do to impact best in the struggle towards animal liberation, because that's what he said and that's what he was always banging on about. So I think a very strong sense of purpose, a very strong sense of who he was. Fanatic, you know, and again, you know, like fanatic, that's just a label that's meant to be used negatively. I was thinking before, when I was thinking about how to respond to it, was if someone, say there was a really famous violinist on TV and everyone's going crazy for this violinist, you know, it's a 20-year-old who's put all her work and time into practicing since she was 8 or something, they might say something like, she's practiced fanatically in her endeavours to excel at the violin. And that would be a positive use of the word fanatic or fanatically. So fanatic is just one of those words they've turned into a negative word for a start. And also, you know, it's kind of a demeaning tone to it, isn't it? Fanatic, you know. It's like just dismiss him as someone who's not in his right mind, you know. Yes, he was obsessed with animal liberation, and totally that's all you could talk about with him. You know, that's what I liked him, you know, and that's what we talk about all the time. And I didn't always agree. I mean, no one agreed with everything Barry said, and he disagreed with most things everyone said. So, you know, he was very determined and very focused. So, you know, it's just rude, isn't it? Fanatic is dismissing. And then notoriety, you know, a strong sense of purpose, basically. And this is the other thing I was thinking, actually, was it kind of describes, it's meant to be a description of someone who's not really a normal person, who doesn't think how the rest of us do. He's different. It's trying to kind of demean him using these words, you know, and the fact is that it's implying some sort of mental instability, like notoriety, revelled in his notoriety, is implying that he's very much egocentric, for example, you know. So, you know, that's, as Barry even wrote in response at one point during, I think it was the second or third hunger strike, I think it was the third, when some people were kind of dismissing it a little bit in maybe the first few weeks, as I recall, dismissing it, saying that he wasn't of sound mind and he was depressed, and these were the reasons he was doing it, you say. And he gave a good response in an article to, I think it was the ALF Supporters Group newsletter, and maybe a couple of other places, maybe the Hunger Strike Support Campaign newsletter, we published it, I think I remember putting it in that. He was saying, if you understand the concept of a hunger strike and you understand what you have to go through on a hunger strike, if you're doing the hunger strike for egotistical reasons, or because you're depressed, or whatever, because of whatever mental imbalance, you will not be able to undertake that hunger strike. A hunger strike, a genuine hunger strike, has to have the total commitment and focus of all your energy that you're willing to risk your own health and life for this purpose, which is the hunger strike. So it's absolutely ridiculous to think that there was egotistical reasons behind it. You'd give up after 3 days, wouldn't you? Because you'd be thinking, Jesus Christ, I need something in my belly. It's groaning. So, anyway, right, let's move on from my ranting about that. There's a picture. Animal rights campaigners hold up pictures of Horne at a protest outside Downing Street in November 1998, which was during his 68-day hunger strike. Don't forget, this article was written in 2001 when he died. So there's loads of people holding pictures up of Barry. Then there's some more pictures. There's one of Barry with his son Christy here. And Christy was a little baby toddler. Barry with hair and a beard. And then there's a photo of Barry which the police took when he was arrested, because they videoed it. I've put quite a few segments of that in my various videos. And there's a picture of Barry nicked, handcuffed, and then the incendiary device packets he made so efficiently and well to such massive effects. These little cigarette packet incendiaries here laid out on display. Look who we've caught. Like displaying him like a zoo animal, really. Poor old Barry. Right, I'm going to read this out. The animal rights activist Barry Horne was an obsessive man who became converted to his cause overnight and made it his mission to go further than anyone else to achieve his goal. I'm not going to address every stupid point, because every sentence sounds like it's going to be bullshit with that headline, doesn't it? So I'm not going to interject on everything. I think you can make your own observations of bias and kind of fascist media tendencies. Okay. A master of disguise. He would duck into multi-storey car parks to change his appearance from a quiet, balding, middle-aged man to a new-age traveller complete with woolly hat and bony tail. He revelled in his notoriety, making clenched fist salutes whenever he appeared in public after his final arrest for a bombing campaign against shops. He said, "People must do what they feel is right in response to my death. Look at the evil Nazis and the level of violence needed, quite rightly, to stop them." I mean, I don't know if that's a real quote of his or not, but whatever. From early life, nobody could have imagined that Horne, father of a daughter, Lucy, who I've been in touch with, and a son, Christy, who I met at his funeral, would become the first Briton to starve himself to death for animal rights. But yesterday, a prison service spokesman confirmed Barry Horne died this morning at Ronkswood Hospital in Worcester. Mr. Horne was a prisoner at Long Lartin and was admitted to hospital on November the 1st with renal damage, which will be from that 68-day hunger strike he did in 98, like 3 years before this. Mr. Horne had been refusing food for some time. He was pronounced dead at 8:35 a.m. I remember where I was when I heard about it. I was actually working in my mate Brent's shop. Brent, who I made a video about a few months ago. I was working in his shop, and my housemate rang up to say, "Oh, Max, have you heard Barry Horne's died?" I was like, "What?" Anyway, I said, "Right, let me find out." So I hung up, and then the first person I rang was Nancy Phipps, because she always knew everything. And I rang her up, and I could kind of tell by the tone, when she realised it was me calling. And, she knew how very fond of Barry I was, and I asked her, and she confirmed that it was true that he had died. But it was kind of like such a shock to us. It was, and these people are just kind of stamping all over him and us and our feelings, and because he happens to be notorious, but he didn't revel in it. Where is it? Prisoners won the legal right to starve themselves to death 7 years ago in a landmark High Court ruling. Mr. Justice Thorpe ruled that as long as the prisoner was demonstrably sane, they should be able to refuse food in jails. Mr. Horne, 49, was serving 18 years for arson, having been convicted at Bristol Crown Court on November 3rd, 1997. He had signed an advance directive refusing medical intervention for his food refusal. And in fact, my partner at the time was his next of kin, so she kind of witnessed all that and signed it as well, or something, And he'd said that from the start, so I knew he was determined to carry it all the way through. Mr. Horne, he had signed, we've done that. As Mr. Horne was declared to be of sound mind, the prison service had no option but to abide by the instructions of the directive. Mr. Horne kept dogs and the occasional cat as family pets in Northampton, but spent most of his adult life as an ordinary meat eater in jobs such as dustman and road sweeper. They always like try and demean him by bringing up the fact that he did some manual jobs. It's like, wow, like the middle class liberal fucking fascist snobbery coming right through there, isn't it? You know what I mean? Ooh, yeah, you've got a comfy job as a journalist in London, you poncy prats. I can't stand journalists, generally speaking. The only hint of the manic streak that would turn him into what his trial judge in 1997 would call an urban terrorist came from his character. His second wife, Aileen, once said that when he wanted to do something, he wanted to do it 24 hours a day. Even if it was something on television, we would have to talk about it non-stop once Christie had gone to bed, she said. It was Aileen that introduced him to the movement. She went to an animal rights group event 18 years ago and was so shocked by what she saw on a film that she persuaded him to join it at the next meeting. Horne replied, "Why should I? I am not interested in animals," but he was so struck by the film about animal cruelty that he became a vegetarian overnight and within days was a vegan. Until then, his interests had been motorcycles and the music of Pink Floyd, Jimi Hendrix, and Deep Purple. Proper hippie. His mother died when he was young and he left school at 15. His daughter Lucy, herself a mother, was by his first wife. His son Christie, 17, was born to Aileen. Aileen said in 1998, "Barry's passion for animal rights was intense. Sometimes I thought if I heard one more word, I would go crazy." Eventually, she gave up her vegetarian diet because she liked bacon. Oh, Jesus Christ. During a previous attempt to kill himself, Aileen was quoted saying, "Christie is upset about his father's hunger strike." Attempt to kill himself. Oh my God. It makes me want to slap these people about, to be honest with you. You talk about my mate like that. He wants his dad to live, but Barry always was a stubborn bastard. Charming. That is true, though. I'll agree with that. Horne cut his teeth as a militant activist by joining Northampton Animal Concern to go sabotaging the Pitchley and Grafton hunts near his Northampton home. He found work in an animal sanctuary and continued protests, including demonstrating on the roof of Boots store about cosmetic testing on animals. Cosmetic testing. They did loads of different experiments. Really nasty shit. Not just cosmetic testing. They always try and demean it. You know what I mean? Or they raise it to medical. It's medical. You can't question medical research. Or it's like demean to just cosmetics. His first conviction was farcical. He plotted to kidnap a dolphin named Rocky from a marine park in Morecambe, Lancashire. Horne and two accomplices were caught as they emerged from the park with a homemade stretcher and a net after giving up trying to capture the 650-pound creature. They were laden with ropes and a ladder and had intended to take Rocky to freedom in a hired mini metro car. Horne was not deterred by a fine and suspended jail term. He moved deeper into animal rights and towards more spectacular outrages. Robin Webb, spokesman for the ALF, said last night his interest was in voluntary hands-on work. Hands-on work. Horne had been as passionate about animal liberation as the campaigners for the abolition of slavery in the 19th century and the suffragettes who demanded votes for women, Mr. Webb said. Horne decided to use more violent methods. Violent? No one was hurt. How was that violent if no one's hurt? And he never intended to hurt anyone, and the judge in his court case, before he gave him 18 years, acknowledged with the prosecution and defence that there had never been any intention to harm life. It's not clear whether he was acting alone or in a small cell. But in 1991, he was jailed for 3 years after being found in possession of bottles of petrol, and a bit more. After his release, to all appearances, Horne turned his back on terrorism to take part in a series of demonstrations disrupting conferences. But he had secretly decided to act as a loner. He was a loner, there's no secret about that. That's what everyone says. Oh dear. Wearing disguises including false moustaches and hairpieces, he brought components for cigarette-packed incendiary bombs from shops in different towns. In 1994, on the Isle of Wight, he caused £3 million worth of damage. Now, it was over £10 million there. In one night, he caused such devastation that the island's fire service could not cope, and crews had to be called from the mainland. That was kind of one of the legendary things about that, because they didn't have enough fire engines to deal with Barry's actions, his little weird things he got up to. And then there's this other thing about starving to get death for a cause, and I had a glance over it before. It's just not worth reading. It's total tosh. It's a waste of our time, all our time, to listen to that. So I hope that's given you a little bit more information or some angles that you might not have heard about before with Barry. So, as always, I hope it gets you thinking. See you on the 6th of November in Huntingdon for Barry's 20th anniversary. Take care. Give it.